Hyrule is a lovely, beautiful kingdom filled with light and happiness, but it is also hiding something very dark in its abyss. A strange glow hangs around this world, and during your travels you'll find that there are giant holes filled with gloom and malice, and even malicious energy that comes from down below the depths. This is a large new world, an underworld beneath Hyrule. Over the years, the series showed us many types of different realms and worlds all scattered between dimensions. Sometimes it's the opposite of the world of Hyrule, or it's a world that only exists for a certain type of person. Whatever it may be, something is hidden underneath, and in this video I'm going to explore and uncover the secrets of the depths. Join me in this video and let's start investigating. Hyrule is naturally a light world, a world that exists in its own right. However, light cannot exist without darkness, and therefore, darkness does exist within this world, and beyond as well. The depths, situated underneath Hyrule, act like it's a world of its own, which it is. This world, acting like a large cavern or cave system, was once inhabited by the ancient Zonai tribe. Many years ago, before the existence of Hyrule, dragons used to roam these tunnels, and these dragons were once a connection to the sky, as the dragons, till this day, still travel through these tunnels like they used to. Fossils of enormous other dragons can be found scattered here, and these bones are enormous. And yet, something even more mysterious can be found here, and only raises more questions rather than answers. Statues, the size of skyscrapers, are found here, and they call themselves the bargaining statues. These entities are scattered across the depths, and there are also 7 of them. We all remember the number 7 as they are referring to the magical 7 of the sages that once protected the kingdom of Hyrule within different timelines. These beings once lived within the realm of the abyss, keeping guard of the dead that ruled the underworld. And somehow, they still do. You see, the depths aren't just caves upon caves. They are the actual underworld of Hyrule, where the spirits go whenever someone above passes on to the afterlife. In Asian mythology, stories tell of mankind wandering around in places they should not be able to go to, as that is only allowed for demigods and gods to wander in. But in Tears of the Kingdom, anyone can climb the depths by entering into a chasm. There's a reasoning behind this, as that is to why Hylians or anyone else can do this. Gloom, the dark magical power of the depths, the darkness that corrupts the light world, has eaten the barrier between light and darkness. Its magic is so corrupt that it disrupts the balance of the life force of Hyrule, which allows anyone to enter at free will. However, only the powerful are able to survive within these walls, and the Zonai constructs of old used their magical technology to defend themselves against evil forces. Whenever someone dies in Hyrule, their spiritual energy, their spiritual life force or their soul, which is described in the text of the Luminous Stones, transforms into something that is called a Po. A Po in the Western audience of the world is described as a soul of a person. However, I feel that this is wrong on a lot of levels regarding Tears of the Kingdom. Instead, a Po is a piece of a person's life force. In Chinese there are 2 words describing types of souls, called Han and, you guessed it, the word Po. These 2 words are connected together in the form of yin and yang, just like how the depths is described as being the dark version of Hyrule where the monsters freely roam. And even the symbols for describing different types of Po in Chinese look identical to the symbols we see in Tears of the Kingdom. This could just be a coincidence, but I wanted to mention this regardless. As I described before, these Poes aren't exactly souls, but transformed pieces of life force that a dead host has lost, and this energy teleported itself to the underworld to roam around forever. However, this is where the old bargaining statues come into play. During Goddess Hylia's reign, these statues used the life force of these Poes, which Hylia disagreed with. Instead of helping out with a pure heart, these statues acted on their own accord, not to guide these Po energy to the afterlife, but to claim it as their own with malicious intent. The statues tell Link that these are souls scattered across the depths, and they need a guiding hand, yet it is Link that is the Psychopomp here. A Psychopomp is a Greek word meaning guide of souls, but in Japanese we have the word that is called Shinigami, which means that Link is the kami of death that guides these Poes to the afterlife by having conversations with these demigods. Whoever cursed these demigods knew that they were up to no good. Their eyes, being the 4 spiritual vessels of their being, was a symbolic imprisonment. If you remember my Forest Temple video from the Ocarina of Time dungeon series, you should know that the number 4 has a symbolic reference to the word death in Japanese, as it sounds very alike. That these demigods deal with spirits means that they are in fact the demigods of death. Statues in the Legend of Zelda series have always been very prevalent, and sometimes they have spirits in them, or they can talk back. Sometimes they come alive, or they guard many different passageways or areas. These statues though are wild in the open, and some of them are even stuck into the ground. One of these statues is clearly showing its allegiance to a certain character that we have not come across yet, Ganondorf. Ganondorf, the main villain of the game, has created a multitude of different forms of himself throughout the timelines, which we called Phantom Ganons. These creatures, born from the Malus or Gloom energy that Ganondorf provides to it, are also connected to the energy forms we call Poes. As Poes are pieces of life force that are scattered throughout the depths, so is Phantom Ganon being a small manifestation of the gloom that Ganon sheds off his body, and is even able to control it, same as the bargaining statues do with the Poes. At the back of these statues we see a demonic creature or its face that looks almost identical to a pig face, which is the face of Ganon. As the Zelda series talk about rebirth and reincarnation, one should not be surprised that these statues got locked up after trying to gain energy by dealing with different entities in the hopes of coming back to the living. As they are demigods, they shouldn't be trusted, as it could very well be that it was the goddess Hylia that cursed them so long ago. Gloom, the dark energy emanating from the depths, is in fact created by these dealings of the underworld. As these dark bribes were done in the past, these statues create gloom by using the energy of the Poes, and because of this, Link actually created more gloom this way. The monsters of the underworld, Lizalfos, Moblins, all of them are reincarnated within this cavern too, and Ganondorf with the power of gloom is able to control the reincarnation of these monsters. During the time that he took the secret Tear Stone from Sonia and planned his invasion of Hyrule, Ganondorf, looking like his predecessor Demise, using the power of Gloom, was able to reincarnate these same creatures by abusing the power of the Red Blood Moon. This is why over time, when the Red Blood Moon occurs again, these same hideous creatures reincarnate back into Hyrule the Light World, from the dark below. Everything is connected this way, just like the yin and yang I mentioned earlier, as none can exist without the other. And here is where the allegiance comes from, as these statues, these demigods, were once commanders of Demise's army. The monsters shrouded with malice and gloom are mining within the caves as they are trying to free their masters from their stone imprisonment, slaying anyone and everyone above in the light world, hoping that enough life force is collected to invade the light world once more. Now I made this story a little bit more exciting than it really is, but this is the feeling that I would have gotten from the depths when I first entered it. Ganondorf, being the ultimate evil that he is, was still a Gerudo from the light world, and yet these statues have a demonic or pig-like face on their backs. The tunic of the depths is even more strange, as it was created by monstrous materials which Poes aren't part of, so how is that exactly possible? Another key detail I found is that the hood of the depths has a small eye part open on the left side of Link's face, which reminded me a lot of the hero's shade that also has one red eye, which happens to be on the same side as the hood. As the shade is a spectre, a ghostly apparition of the hero of time, one could say that they are indeed connected to each other. Another character we obviously have to talk about is the Poe Collector from Ocarina of Time. During my research, I found and noticed a couple of things about him that some might have missed, and one symbol can be found on the carpet that's on the ground. On the N64 version, the shape looks more like a rupee-like shape, but on the 3DS version, the shape has changed a little bit, and now it looks exactly like the symbolism I've seen before, which is the Twilight symbolism on the sleeve from character's end. The diamond shape is now visible, with the strange tentacle-like corners. All this could potentially mean that these demigods used to be human themselves at one point, and during their human era, they went on the wrong dark path. Their clothing and shape that these statues are made of reminds me of demons like Janemba from Dragon Ball Z, mixed with Impa from Skyward Sword. There are a lot of different words to explain a demonic presence in Japanese, with words like Oni, which is an ogre, Yokai, which are spirits, Majin, like Majin Buu from Dragon Ball Z, which means Demon Buu. But it's not just the Sheikah that might have crossed paths with the devs, so did the Gerudo. Underneath the Arbiter grounds from Twilight Princess, there is the Gerudo graveyard, with all the bodies transformed into Redeads after the Gloom took over. Another funny thing I found is something called the Jade Burial Suit. Put them side by side next to the giant living constructs and they look quite alike. Maybe it's another reference to death. Just like the statues are being kept in the dark, so are the light roots, giant plants growing within these caves. As the statues stand tall and high defending the darkness, so do the light roots against evil. As Gloom tries to invade the light world by using the energy of spirits, so does the light root to protect the world against chaos, and therefore, Link is the one activating them again. The Zonai knew that these plants were created to protect their kind from harm, and so they mined all around these plants in case monsters invaded their minds, to no avail. As time progressed, the minds of the Zonai eventually collapsed, and the Zonai themselves slowly died out with only a few handful left. This is when the few Zonai that was left decided to stay away from the chasms and built their empire on top of the devs instead, which caused them to lose their influence over it. This explains how Misko the Bandit was able to hide all the treasures he had stolen in the caves before he disappeared, as the barrier between dimensions was at its weakest. Misko could have used the Majora's Mask, trying to sneak past all the monsters that were after him, and this is how he did it. Another part of the caves that progressed during the decay of the devs was Gorondia, the city of the Gorons. During the Zonai influence, the Gorons and the Zonai worked together and formed a large city. They came together to help each other's goals. Colosseums and training areas were built in different parts of the devs to train the best warriors against invasions of the Dodongos that once roamed these lands. The Dodongos died out ages ago, with their fossils clearly visible, when the Gorons fled to the surface as there was nothing more to eat. The city was eventually, just like everything else in the devs, abandoned, feeding its existence to the rot of Gloom. The smaller statues that shows a Zora, Zonai, Hylian or Gerudo, Rito and the Goron is the reference to this large peace treaty or alliance that was once a giant tribe during the times of Skyward Sword. Overall, the devs are the opposite of what is Hyrule, and there is much more to uncover or to talk about, which we could do in multiple videos. For now, I would like to thank everyone that enjoyed this video. And what do you think about the devs, and what theories do you like to propose to the Zelda community? Did you like my theory or didn't you like it? Share down in the comments below. And for now, this is Gaia Legend, and have a good one.